Why is that?
Brand new. You want to have,
I thought you were a professional.
That's what I can tell you why. If you're professional, you've got the good excuses.
Oh, if you're a professional, you know it's out of tune. All right. Should try it and see if we can get it. Okay. So, 1, 2, 3, 4.
KLOS Radio presents a conversation between Elliot Mintz and Donovan.
Sorry, I go. Because I felt it go weak on the G. I wanted to remain strong and, as if something was going dun 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 dun. You know how it does under Vivaldi.
You want me to carry the book with intensity on?
Well, although I said chamber, I think I meant I'm hearing a Vivaldi when it begins. Da da da, and so we haven't got the instruments to go dun 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 and keep it really moving.
I can do this.
Two, 3, 4. Something like that. So it's vital all the way through. It's you and him. Yeah.
I'll just carry you over with a little curl to you.
Right. The double tag, you can do what you want on it, Paul. Although you switch down to a lower.
Switch down, but I don't think the first time I will on the instrumental.
No, okay. Yeah. Great. Let's try it again and go through the song. 1, 2, 3, 4. Train the eagle to stoop down to your fist. Feed him cheese and bagels and send him to the east. The dragon beast, he may move her to give over her prey, but you'll never stop a lover, he will find a way. He will find a way. You who teach your children to suppress and subdue, philosophize their freedom and keep from them what is true. Shake your hammer and your sickle, the individual to slay, but you'll never stop a lover, he will find a way. But you'll never stop a lover, he will find a way. You may dream an empire, a planet up on high, searching for the God power with stardust in your eyes. The Milky Moon ye may wander, from golden night to silver day. But you'll never stop a lover, he will find a way. But you'll never stop a lover, he will find a way.
When you first meet him, you were immediately struck by his poetic simplicity. He is a fragile man, yet his presence is unmistakable. His movements and subtle grace bring to mind a being from a different time. Indeed, he is the Renaissance man, transposed, yet once again, to be both poet and troubadour, to fill our heads with tales of the gypsy maidens, sorcerers, lovers, magicians, and others with stardust in their eyes. And his songs carry you from golden night to silver day, and you smile and remember how very beautiful it's always been. Donovan, last night I sat up and went through about a dozen of your record albums and listened to, 30, 40, 50 songs, and lots of thoughts came to mind. What are the things in the world that give you the greatest amount of pleasure?
Singing gives me a great amount of pleasure, and writing songs gives me a great amount of pleasure, but not so much as singing them. Being in wild places, far away from cities. Just recently, the greatest amount of pleasure I can ever receive is from a family, because I just married, and a girl that I was in love with many years ago, and it didn't happen. She has a boy already, and we've just had a baby together, and that sort of pleasure is a promise of pleasure, you know. It also is great pleasure being with them, but there's also a promise of being able to, for the first time in my life, maybe put a house together, a home, not a house, it's a building. Put a home together in such a way that I feel as if I'm now part of the human race, whereas I was a wayfarer. And now I have something that I really want to build, and I'm actually looking forward to being part of a community. And I've chosen a community where I think we could live, up in the north of Scotland, and in a village. I can't handle big communities, I realised, but the postman and the baker and the candlestick maker and all those things, I'm feeling that might be where it's at, you know. Coming to terms with life is, if you can meet someone, whoever, and have a little family and build yourself a little scene. That's my personal pleasures, you know, right now.
That's interesting. It represents a departure from your former lifestyle, because you were very much the gypsy and you were very much the rover, and what you're suggesting seems very sedate, very beautiful, I might add. Do you think you'll miss the lifestyle of constantly moving and not having a place to dwell in?
Well, you see, when you're not settled, when you are moving and when you are a wayfarer, the possibility of settling down is crazy, you know. I mean, it will stop your creation, it will screw you up, and don't even think about it. And people who settle down and get married are crazy. And from the other side of the fence, it's not so crazy, because it was a supposition then. Marriage, the marriage isn't anything. Marriage is not the proper word for two people who can really get it on together. But I done a radio station in New York, and it was a call. They called up the kids, you know, and they were speaking to me. And somebody said that, do you think your creation will change now, you know? And I was wondering, the writing of songs comes from very happy times or very lonely times. And the best songs, they say, come out when you're really broken and hurt and alone and sad. And all those wonderful, beautiful songs come out and you earn a lot of money, and so it's not so bad being sad. But it works the same in the other way, being very joyful. Not necessarily saying I won't get sad anymore, or I won't be reflective, but you know, you grow and you mature, and now is the season for me to start building children and homes and things like that. So the muse is the same. You know, you still make songs from your experiences. But those who haven't come to this evolvement of meeting someone and trying to build a family, obviously will look upon it as something to be scared of. Like I really was scared of thinking of settling down, and because I didn't have anything to worry about. And I thought worrying for somebody was the worst thing you can do in the world. What a terrible responsibility, having to worry about somebody. But it's great. It seems that life is worrying, is carrying, and helping, if you have the strength, select people or persons that you meet. And just be, you know, I don't know how I got here. I just followed my nose, and here I am.
Do you recall the day your child was born?
I'm just going to take this shade down. Yeah, I can see you sweating away there.
It's so lovely out here by the beach.
Yeah.
I've always liked the Malibu area. The day your child was born, do you remember what that was like, where you were the moment it happened, the first kinds of thoughts that went through your mind when you got the news, when you saw your child?
Oh yeah, it's very interesting. You see, we were going to have the baby in Ireland. We've been here a few months, I may add, and we're trying to make a record and get a few things together. And here we were going to go back to England, have the baby, back to Ireland, have the baby, come back here and do a tour. But we said, no, we'll do have the baby, where we're going to do the tour, we'll have the baby here. So we started going to see a doctor. We decided to have it natural, childbirth, Lamaze, no drugs, you see. So we got that together, and we started going to these lessons, and we're not very good at lessons, Linda and I. And we thought we're never going to get this together. But we started the breathing exercises, and we were on top a little because we knew how to meditate, so we knew about breathing and relaxing. Then the day came, nearer and nearer, that we were going to have the baby, and the doctor said it could come tomorrow or 2 weeks. It's getting very near. And I started timing little contractions like they teach you. And we went to see Jesus Christ Superstar at the bowl, in one of those little stalls out the front, invited by some people. So I'm sitting there, and just the show goes up late, and it's just about to start, and the lights are going down. And sure enough, the baby starts coming in the middle of the Hollywood Bowl. So I said to myself, we're not, oh Christ, we're not ready, you know. Here we are, you know, in the middle of this whole show, and we're going to have the baby. So I go to a telephone number that I had left for my chauffeur, you know. So I called him, the number was disconnected. I tried to call a taxi, no taxis. Somehow, some ridiculous situation, I couldn't get a taxi. So the authorities of the Hollywood Bowl started getting involved, and it started getting like a great drama. I was in one box, and I'd left Linda on sitting down somewhere by this time the show had started, so thousands of people were in there. We were out in the foyer, you know, where they sell the tickets and things. So we're sitting around there, and I'm trying to call the doctor to tell him, so he can call the hospital that's going to do the natural childbirth scene, so that I can get there in time. And I can't get the doctor, because they don't do a long-distance telephone call from there without going through another number. So I go to the office by this time, and you go into these little offices, and there's these women on the phone saying, yes, 3 women have fainted, 5 guys have had overdoses of this, and there's all these things going on behind the scenes that happen behind great concerts. So I'm there, and I'm saying, what? Right, I want, what? By this time I'm getting a little nervous, but I'm saying, now be cool, because, you know, you're supposed to do this natural childbirth, and I'm going up to guys that are on certain policemen or certain ticket collectors, and I'm saying, listen, can you tell me where I can make a telephone call? I've got to call. And he's saying, you're Donovan, ain't you? I say, yeah, I'm Donovan, but can you tell me how? You were here a couple of years ago, weren't you? And I'm saying to him, yeah. I said, oh, you're very nice. Oh, and your mother likes me. Oh, thanks very much. Some fellow said, why don't you phone an ambulance? And by this time, Linda was in a little room, and a little Oriental nurse who was on duty there was preparing for birth. And what a problem. Here we go. So we phoned up the ambulance. The ambulance, so one of these private Schaefer ambulances, comes quietly into the Hollywood Bowl, no siren. And the fellow says, right, which hospital? And I said, Cedars of Lebanon. And he said, have you got a confirmation? I said, no. He says, well, I can't take you to Cedars of Lebanon. So I've got to take you to the Mission down the road. So we're getting, so this time I'm saying, oh, that's it. no natural childbirth. They're going to pump her full of drugs. She's going to lie there like an idiot and going to have the baby in a coma. So I'm saying, how can I get this together? I said, all right, take me on the way to the mission, and at the same time phone the hospital and see if they can confirm me. So on the way, we're screaming through that lower Los Angeles area there with this great, and Linda's in the back. Finally they confirm, and we arrive at the hospital. And they asked me, have you got all your natural childbirth equipment? You're supposed to have all this equipment with ice and little bags and junk like that. I said, no, I haven't. And then 2 seconds later, the doctor comes in, and I find he's a real cool old Jewish doctor, you know, really nice, peaceful. It's all cool. And I had the most beautiful experience of my life, just seeing Linda through it. And we done it together, and at times she was screaming for drugs, but we didn't give her any. And out in the corridors outside, there was ladies who had been pumped full of drugs, you know, with their eyes all rolled back, completely oblivious to this beautiful experience they were about to have. And Linda and I had it, and it was beautiful. And there you go.
I just wanted to get your comments, Donovan, about drugs, because remember that you were probably the first major important rock and roll artist to take the step of advising young people all over to put down the use of drugs. Why did you do that, and what are your thoughts about dope now, 3 or 4 years later?
I'd done it because I'd felt that if you're evolved into finer consciousness, even in a little bit, just to appreciate a flower, you've evolved a little into fine consciousness. You don't necessarily have to attribute it to a drug. Your awareness or an experience of a beautiful color or something comes from a place in your consciousness that wasn't stimulated by the drug. The drug perhaps opened something in you. I say the drug relaxes or makes you uptight enough for you to experience those things, but the experience is you, not the drug. And that's what got me around thinking that it was something more deeper than a drug, although I just took drugs and got high like the rest of us who hung around the scene. And out of it I learned that, and I thought perhaps, you know, I should tell somebody a few things about it. So at that time I was thinking there was another consciousness, another way of touching these higher registers of consciousness, and it was meditation. And at the time I was banning drugs, as it were. I didn't know anything about meditation. And then slowly it came around to it, that there was a way, and I tried meditation. And a lot of kids tried it. And I think it wasn't just me, although I spoke out. I think the whole thing was changing in people's minds anyway.
You were with Maharishi at the time, weren't you?
Yeah, a little after... yeah, that's right. I put his picture on the back of that particular album that I'd mentioned. And it was such a joy to find that there was a man, or there was a consciousness that you could reach, where all psychiatric problems were like measles. You know, there was a peace of mind somewhere that your mind could be balanced. And I was on my way to that, and I already played transcendental music, so Maharishi told me. Music, I can put people into the consciousness with music in concert, and drugs can put you there for a very brief period, and then you have to get out. Drugs make your nervous system tense because they're very physical, and other forms of consciousness touching are not, they're spiritual. It's finer, you know. Anyway, now what do I feel about dope? I couldn't take it. It would be like I can't take drink, I can't smoke cigarettes. I've passed beyond a lot of things, you know, and I couldn't, if I took them again, it would be like driving a rusty nail into me or something. It would be such an alien thing to do to my nervous system. Alcohol, one sip, my whole nervous system revolts. Same with certain drugs, you know, well, all drugs, all synthetics. I just wouldn't think about taking them now. So I think a lot of people have gone beyond them.
Yeah, I just wanted you to give us an idea of the kind of music that you're into now, and what people can expect to hear tomorrow night.
Well, when I gave up playing with the band on stage, I was playing alone, just with the guitar and the voice, having great fun, because complete, total freedom, being able to stop the song in the middle, do anything with it, change it, play it how I wanted, was great. And then 1 year of that showed me that was great, but I got a little lonely on stage, so I had met Paul Horn in India, So I asked Paul to come along, and we played on stage, and I found him to be the same as I, that we could stop in the middle without any great paranoia. So there I'd found one more musician that could just play totally free. And he followed me so closely that it was perfect. And then after that tour, we spoke about each other. By then, my music had developed. Flute and guitar and me had always got on. I'd used a flute player who's dead now in England, called Harold McNair, on some recordings. But it was never as free as Paul and I. It was quite making parts. So after Paul and I got together, we talked and we had good fun on stage. And then I'd always wanted to use a string. I'd wondered whether it was violin, but violin was too tinny. Then I heard of viol, very old-fashioned viol, which is the old-fashioned violin, the violin being a new member of the musical family. And that was the sound. And the one we have now is the viola. So I thought it was cello, I thought it was viola. So I had to decide between cello and viola. And next door, at the beach here where we were living, there was a celloist who said, well, all you do is look up the book of musicians and find one. So we looked up the book and found the best sort of viola players, and I started phoning them up, and they started eliminating themselves, and we ended up with Peter, and it's great. So it's a wonderful, easy evolvement, this sound that we make, and it's not, I had it in my mind and always wanted it. It evolved. When I started playing with Paul, I started realizing I would like another instrument like Paul. And then when Paul and I were together, we talked about strings, didn't we? What?
Yeah, you always heard the sound of the viola, which was...
But never knew where it came from, the viola.
Yeah, Donovan heard it, and it is perfect for his voice and the guitar. The violin would stand out too much where the viola blends in. It's a richer, fatter sound. It's like the alto flute compared to...
I was going to mention that, yeah, because I've been playing with the soprano flute. Soprano flute?
Yeah,
C flute. The C flute for so many years before I met Paul, and it was nice, but then Paul had the alto flute, which is the lower, and it's even more. The tone had to be the tone of the instrument that was to be strung, bowed, had to be in the same family, and
Paul,
the viola is it.
Paul, the difference again between those two flutes.
Well, that was the alto you heard, nice and low and mellow,
right?
Like my guitar, like my voice, and then play the C, and then the C is the.
Certain registers they sound alike, but actually it can go 4 notes lower, the alto flute. But aside from that, it's fatter, it's bigger too, and it's longer, so the sound is...
So this is the smaller one.
I see.
It's up there, which is nice for some numbers, but we find we use the alto more.
When you write songs, Donovan, do you write them with the sound of a particular flute in mind, or does Paul just kind of...
No, we just write them and then marvel at the things you can add to it, you know. And not the instruments, but the trills and the harmonies and it's so nice just working with 2 musicians, and now 3. It's just even more amazing.
Peter, is this your first time doing something of this type?
Yes, it certainly is.
Tell about where you come from. What sort of music have you been involved in?
See, I'm a classical violist. I mean, I've had all my music training, for instance, at Juilliard School of Music. And I've done a lot of concert work. I just played the Ojai Festival, and I was over to England to play Cheltenham Festival there. And I've been in the Los Angeles Philharmonic. I was their assistant principal violist. But I haven't done any work in the more popular line.
Pop music.
What's it like? What's the transition like for you?
Well, I mean, you're so much freer.
Are we playing pop music? Did it ever imagine that this would be pop music?
No, because it isn't really. I mean, what I had in mind for pop music is rock, you know, with a lot of heavy sound and drums and blaring trumpets and whatnot. But this is so peaceful and beautiful ballads, and it's very easy because lines. You see, my instrument is a linear instrument, as opposed to a chordal instrument, and so it's beautiful to have a counter line to what Donovan is singing.
Could you explain that a little more? I don't think most of us understand.
Yeah, in other words, in many of our songs, instead of outlining a chord all the time,
I play the chord. You see,
right.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 strings going, and they make a chord.
I've got 4, and they don't. But I can make a line out of the harmony.
Yeah, so he plays lead. You might say.
Lead violin.
Viola.
Viola.
Please. We gotta watch it. This is
Does this kind of music require more or less concentration than, let's say, being in the Philharmonic?
Well, it's a different kind of concentration. For instance, in the Philharmonic, I'm reading off a part. That's set. And
Right.
my concentration goes into blending with my section and being right with the conductor.
Aha.
You know, and you have to be careful that your sound blends with your particular section, and that in turn blends with the whole, and you really are concentrating in a different way. Here I find I have to concentrate on the meaning of the music, which is what I like. That's what I do in my solo playing.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, I have to be sensitive to the other players. Of course, we just got together a couple of days ago, and
We're
so
doing great.
the heaviest thing for my concentration is just adjusting to the new format. I mean, I won't be up on stage with music. I concentrate in a different way.
I feel that classics is the last one to be helped by pop music. A few years ago, that would be a terrible phrase, you know. That see, folk music was taken under the wing. Bob Dylan brought the folk music in, and somebody else brought the jazz in. So jazz and folk and all the old forms of music have been brought under this wing of pop music, except classics, and they've been used maybe as backing for records, but never have the soloists. A few of them have ended up as rock pianists and things like that, but never really legit. So what is interesting is the classics are so stiff. They need to be loosened up. They need to be folkified into and what you're doing is really you're improvising in places, which is the thing classical musicians never do.
Is that so? That you were what we were listening to before was actually just improvising? That wasn't.
Yes.
Well, he'd worked his own parts out, as it were, and we'd sort of given our opinions on them, but.
There are some verses in the others that I'm just
just playing.
What
and
occurs to me at the moment.
And that I feel is good.
Of course, it'd be kind of messy if you had 150 people doing that in an orchestra at one time.
Paul, do you...
So, in other words, the whole structure of some of classical music is such that that's impossible. But I will say that throughout the years, and especially in the 20th century, classical music has been very responsive to what goes on in popular music and in jazz. I mean, the neo...
Yeah. But about jazz, you know, what did jazz get from pop music? Or what happened with jazz? How did jazz get influenced by pop music?
Well, it got influenced by the rhythm section.
Yeah.
Mainly rhythmically.
Could you give us some examples of that, Paul?
Well, jazz is a sophisticated form. So any form of music finally gets to the point where it's so sophisticated that it loses touch with the people. And that's when it starts dying. And classical music is going to do that. In other words, it appeals to the few intellectuals. But it didn't start out that way. The early classical musicians were very warm. It was the music of the time. It was the pop music.
Yeah.
Bach was pop music. But a couple of hundred years later, then it's looked upon as an intellectual thing which doesn't have too much warmth or emotional contact. But that's not the case. So with jazz, too, it got to the point where it backed itself into a corner. I'd say in the 60s. Then toward the 50s anyway. And then in the 60s, the influence of pop music, that began to have a higher level of musicianship.
Right on the other end of the scale, the traditional jazz. But I used to put on modern jazz, you know, the school you were in.
I never knew you were influenced by that.
Yeah, I used to. See, before I became what you call pop musician, I was what they call folk musician. And folk musicians, like jazz musicians, never mixed with pop musicians. And, you know, it was a taboo scene.
About when was this?
This was 60, for me it was 63. Just the Beatles were just coming out big.
So this was before Catch the Wind and Universal Soldier and...
This was when I was just hanging out in college, and we'd play jazz and poetry, that as well, you know, poetry and jazz. And we'd listen to Miles, we'd listen to Cannibal Adderley, we'd listen to... Me, I was particularly influenced, and I loved the Blue Miles and Chico Hamilton and all those. It's very mood. Yeah. Very peaceful.
Were you singing then, or just playing?
Yeah, I was bashing out cowboy songs, and my other influence in folk music was Woody Guthrie and the very few ethnic British songs, although now I'm more into ethnic British, that's Old Irish and Scottish, than I was then. Because you see, then I was labelled, inside the folk scene there was another division. One was called ethnic, where you sang with no guitars and no rhythm, and you sang, oh, I am an old jolly sailor boy, I'm out to sea, you know. And then there was the others, who was like Joan Baez, we would listen to, and all her sort of scene from America.
Right.
Because the folk musician in America was big superstar class even then, and in England we didn't have much. But there was a fine British revival that went on that influenced me only very lately. But in those days, 64, 63, 64, 65, I was listening and playing to American songwriters and singers, Jack Elliot, early Bob Dylan.
So you were not really into... we spoke with John Lennon last week, and he said that his early roots was early American rock and roll, Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, people like that, and apparently you...
Although I was listening to it before I hung around the folk scene, you might say, I was listening to early Everleys and like any kid would, and I used to buy Buddy Holly every week. But when I became a folk musician, I denied myself all that for a while, when in actual fact I realized it influenced me a lot. And I didn't even know it. It was Buddy Holly's writing. He was an early rock and roller, but he wrote melodically and sang very softly. You know.
What you're doing now, Donovan, does it express in your head a return to some of your roots, a return to that more...
I wonder what we're doing now.
Pardon me?
I wonder what we're doing now.
Well, it's certainly a more personal, intimate style.
What it is the personal style I've had with the audience, I'm now trying to blossom out, and it's taken 3 years to include other musicians. And it's very a long process because it's a certain personality, I want to get the same intimacy with the audience. I've taught my audience how to listen intimately to me, so now I want to introduce them to other musicians and forms of music on the same basis. A thing that in the early day I just got a hold of jazz musicians on stage, and I got a lot of classical musicians and just played.
Right.
I realized that wasn't where it was at. I had to begin with solo instrumentalists who were good enough to show their instrument in its sensitive form. I tend to think this setup is like folk music. I call it folk music. And Paul blows jazz out now and again, and Peter will be blowing out classics now and again.
It's a great combination of classics and jazz. And
I don't think we've left anything out. We've thought of a percussionist, you know. We've thought seriously about conga and little bells and tinkles, and a true percussionist who knew all shakers and sounds.
Why have you decided against that?
Well, maybe one at a time, you know, and it takes a year to maybe select the right idea. It's an idea. But we have so much rhythm in us, Paul and I, to begin with, and Peter has the rhythm also. We have this rhythm in us, innate in us, and to put any other rhythm, we'd tend to want to play to that rhythm.
I see.
So the person, whoever he is, and I'm sure I'll find a percussionist who's got to be as close as Paul and I, and as close as I hope Peter and I match at the end of the tour, you know.
I know you all got to get to work, so we'll just kind of sit and listen in on one or two of the things that you do, and
we're going to run
out of
through
here.
some more things. And
okay, we'll just eavesdrop.
Okay.
KLOS, Los Angeles.
You give me fever found among the chaos and the wheel, scattered all around on the wild windy wave I'm tossed, cast away and lost. Now I understand what the sad songs say. Make up your mind to be happy. Life is a merry-go-round. If you miss out this time, don't let it fret your mind. Love will come round in the end. Make up your mind to be happy. Life is a merry-go-round. If you miss out this time, don't let it fret your mind. Love will come round in the end. Between the devil and the deep blue, I find myself out of the frying pan and into, left on the shelf, born willy-nilly here and there. My heart's so full of care, but that's the only way to understand what this sad song says. Make up your mind to be happy. Life is a merry-go-round. If you miss out this time, don't let it fret your mind. Love will come round in the end. So make up your mind to be happy. Life is a merry-go-round. And if you miss out this time, don't let it fret your mind. Love will come round in the end. Life is a merry-go-round. If you miss out this time, don't let it fret your mind. Love will come round in the end. So make up your mind to be happy. Life is a merry-go-round. If you miss out this time, don't let it fret your mind, for love will come round in the end. So make up your mind to be happy, for life is a merry-go-round. And if you miss out this time, well, don't let it fret your mind, for love will come round in the end. Last time. Make up your mind to be happy.
And for the past hour here on KLOS Los Angeles, you've been listening to an exclusive conversation that we had last week with Donovan. And the music that you heard this is the first place that you've heard any of it. At the beginning of the tape, Donovan sang another song. We had a little technical failure here. We're going to try to work on that right now. And in just a moment or two, we'll play one more song by Donovan that he sang for us. The program began.
Why is that?
It's brand new. It's the one I had put on. You know,
I thought you were a professional.
That's why I can tell you why. If you're a professional, you've got the good excuses.
Oh, if you're a professional, you know it's out of tune. All right. Should try it and see if we can get it. Okay. So, 1, 2, 3, 4.
KLOS Radio presents a conversation between Elliot Mintz and Donovan.
Sorry, I goofed. Because I felt it go weak on the G. I want it to remain strong and, you know, as if something was going dun 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 dun. You know how it does under Vivaldi. You know.
You want me to carry it across with intensity on?
Well, although I said chamber, I think I meant I'm hearing a Vivaldi when it begins. You know, dun dun dun, and so we haven't got the instruments to go dun 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 and keep it really moving.
I can do this.
Two, 3, 4. Something like that. So it's vital all the way through. It's you and him. Yeah.
Better.
How's that? I'll just carry you over with a little curlicue.
Right.
The double tag, you can do what you want on it, Paul. Although you switch down to a lower.
Switch down, but I don't think the first time I will on the instrumental.
No, okay. Yeah. Great. Let's try it again and go through the song. 1, 2, 3, 4. You may train the eagle to stoop down to your fist. Feed him cheese and bagels and send him to the east. The dragon beast, he may move her to give over her prey, but you'll never stop a lover. He will find a way. He will find a way. You who teach your children to suppress and subdue, philosophize their freedom and keep from them what is true. Shake your hammer and your sickle, the individual to slay, but you'll never stop a lover. He will find a way.
but you'll never stop a lover. He will find a way. You may dream an empire of planets up on high, searching for the God power with stardust in your eye. The Milky Moon ye may wander, from golden night to silver day, but you'll never stop a lover. He will find a way. But you'll never stop a lover. He will find a way.
When you first meet him, you are immediately struck by his poetic simplicity. He is a fragile man, yet his presence is unmistakable. His movements and subtle grace bring to mind a being from a different time. Indeed, he is the Renaissance man, transposed, yet once again, to be both poet and troubadour, to fill our heads with tales of the gypsy maidens, sorcerers, lovers, magicians, and others with stardust in their eyes, and his songs carry you from golden night to silver day, and you smile and remember how very beautiful it's always been.
Little pebble upon the sand, now you're lying here in my hand. How many years?
And that was the beginning of the tape that we had a little bit of difficulty with earlier, but now we're set to go. All the tickets to Donovan's... Oh, just a second. Am I all right? Okay. All of the tickets to Donovan's concert at the Forum tomorrow night have now been given away here at KLOS. For those of you who can afford it, you'll enjoy that show tomorrow. And for the past hour here on KLOS Los Angeles, you've been listening to an exclusive conversation that we had last week with Donovan. And the music that you heard was... This is the first place that you've heard any of it. At the beginning of the tape, Donovan sang another song. We had a little technical failure here. We're going to try to work on that right now. And in just a moment or two, we'll play one more song by Donovan that he sang for us. The program began.
Why is that?
It's brand new. It's the one I have put on. You know,
I thought you were a professional.
That's why I can tell you why. If you're a professional, you've got the good excuses.
Oh, if you're a professional, you know it's out of tune. All right. Should try it and see if we can get it. Okay. So, 1, 2, 3, 4.
KLOS Radio presents a conversation between Elliot Mintz and Donovan.
Sorry, I goofed. Because I felt it go weak on the G. I wanted to remain strong and, you know, as if something was going dun 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 dun. You know how it does under Vivaldi.
You know. You want me to carry the cross with intensity?
Well, although I said chamber, I think I meant I'm hearing a Vivaldi when it begins. You know, da da da, and so we haven't got the instruments to go dun 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 and keep it really moving.
I can do this. Two.
2, 3, 4. something like that. So it's vital all the way through. It's you and him. Yeah.
Better.
How's that? I'll just carry you over with a little curlicue.
Right.
The double tag, you can do what you want on it, Paul. Although you switch down to a lower.
Switch down, but I don't think the first time I will on the instrumental.
No, okay. Just, yeah. Great. Let's try it again and go through the song. 1, 2, 3, 4. You may train the eagle to stoop down to your fist. Feed him cheese and bagels and send him to the east. The dragon beast, he may move her to give over her prey, but you'll never stop a lover. He will find a way. He will find a way. You who teach your children to suppress and subdue, philosophize their freedom and keep from them what is true. Shake your hammer and your sickle, the individual to slay, but you'll never stop a lover. He will find a way. But you'll never stop a lover. He will find a way. You may dream an empire of planets up on high, searching for the God power with stardust in your eye. The Milky Moon ye may wander from golden night to silver day, but you'll never stop a lover. He will find a way. But you'll never stop a lover. He will find a way.
When you first meet him, you were immediately struck by his poetic simplicity. He is a fragile man, yet his presence is unmistakable. His movements and subtle grace bring to mind a being from a different time. Indeed, he is the Renaissance man, transposed, yet once again, to be both poet and troubadour, to fill our heads with tales of the gypsy maidens, sorcerers, lovers, magicians, and others with stardust in their eyes, and his songs carry you from golden night to silver day, and you smile and remember how very beautiful it's always been.
Little pebble upon the sand, now you're lying here in my hand. How many years?
And that was the beginning of the tape that we had a little bit of difficulty with earlier, but now we're set to go. All the tickets to Donovan's... Oh, just a second. Am I all right? Okay. All of the tickets to Donovan's concert at the Forum tomorrow night have now been given away here at KLOS. For those of you who can afford it, you'll enjoy that show tomorrow.